Hey, FlimsyLunchTray here, and welcome to our Friday edition of World of Warships. Today I'm going to be featuring a replay of the Kansas, and we're going to be doing an upgrade commander build video on the Kansas tomorrow. I wasn't originally planning to touch or play with the Kansas, if you will, but I decided that there was, during the Independence Day event that they had in World of Warships, you could acquire the Minnesota and the Vermont for cheaper credits-wise, and credits were half off. So I decided to get a battle in with Kansas, try to get the 200% daily win bonus they were doing that weekend, and make it cheaper to purchase the Minnesota and Vermont, which, yes, I did free XP through both of them, but I will be playing them a bit before I do an upgrade and commander build video on those two ships. So let's talk about Kansas before the recent buff she had. Previously, I didn't enjoy playing the Kansas by any means. She's this squishy, slow battleship with a really long reload time, and I just didn't enjoy playing Kansas at all. I would just every now and then take it into co-op if I just was trying to shave off the 250 XP combat mission. I wouldn't really play it that much, and after I played, this is my first battle playing the Kansas since the buff, and this was about, as you were watching this, was probably about 2 weeks ago, something like that, close to, where I got to experience Kansas in more of this state, and she's so much more enjoyable to play. I actually have to see, I think there was, I don't know if there's 2 or 3 buffs. The buff that I really like, well, I like 2 of the buffs they really did on the Kansas. The first is her acceleration. You're going to be able to see me using some L acceleration later, completely juke a salvo, which is so incredibly odd to me because of how slow this battleship accelerated. And now she accelerates to her very slow top speed much quicker. And the other thing that they did was that, like you have on the Massachusetts, the Georgia, the Ohio, they have a repair party that has a 40-second cooldown, and they decided to go ahead and also put that 40-second cooldown time on the Kansas, Minnesota, and Vermont. So that helps you a whole bunch just because of how squishy of a battleship you are when you are dealing with the enemy team, because there's this meme, I can throw it up on the screen, because if you misposition, I mean, it's not even sometimes mispositioning. You're just so slow that the enemy, every other tier 8 battleship is faster than you are, right? And cruisers are faster, destroyers are faster, so you can quickly find yourself swallowed up by the enemy team because you're just such a slow battleship. And so for me, I didn't like that. I like the speed that you get a little bit more out of Massachusetts, out of the Bismarck, so on and so forth. So what makes the Kansas really interesting when Wargaming introduced this new U.S. battleship line was it reminds me so much of the West Virginia or Colorado, the Tier 7 American battleship. Slow, kind of has this heavy broadside, and it's just not a maneuverable ship. Well, now since the buffs, that's helped with the Kansas, as we do nice little salvo there on a broadside North Carolina. Where to me, Kansas is just more enjoyable to play. So let's talk about kind of the unique characteristics of the Kansas. So the Kansas has a very heavy broadside with her 12 406mm main guns. She has a good range with her main battery without even having to use the spotter plane. Interestingly enough, despite her being slow, and she's not this super long battleship, she has a really good turning circle radius. And for a battleship at Tier 8, it's pretty good. It's above the average. She also has a great torpedo damage reduction because of how thick this battleship is. The torpedo bulges cover most of the ship's sides, as that's very helpful when you're dealing with a destroyer and you're not very fast to be able to get away. And they also gave this line the defensive AA. So having access to actually really good AA and having the defensive AA fire is quite nice Now, when you're dealing with tier 6 carriers, you're gonna just delete them out of the air very quickly. With tier 8, you're probably never gonna stop the first strike, and then tier 10 and you know, Lord forbid you see a super carrier, that's much more difficult to deal with, okay? And I'll talk about the Citadel tomorrow in the Saturday video. And as I said previously, she's the slowest battleship at tier 8. Before you take the Sierra Mike flag, her base speed is of 23 knots. Some of these things I'm just highlighting from the WoW's wiki page. And the one thing that really drives me nuts about this line that makes it more enjoyable to play since the buffs is she has an extremely long reload time. So you can see it was just under 30, I think 39 seconds there. It's incredibly long. The stock is a whopping 40 seconds. So you really have to time your shots because if you completely whiff a whole salvo, it can be really frustrating because then you have to wait another 40 seconds for it to come back up. And here this North Carolina is just overextending, and so I'm going to help my Senate player out, and we're just going to punish his broadside here as he moves up. I mean, North Carolina, that's a much faster battleship than Kansas for sure. So here you can see the heavy broadside at work. Granted, he doesn't have the most health in the world, but you're going to see us do some more damage to another battleship later on in the video. The other thing that I didn't like about the Kansas, or I still don't like, but it makes sense, is that she's a very squishy battleship. Here you get to see the defensive AA at work, and he ate so much flak flying in, so that was really hysterical. So you get to see the def AA at work there against a tier 6 carrier. Like I said, you will just obliterate tier 6 CV planes out of the sky. But this battleship is covered with the 32mm plating, so you're very vulnerable to HE spam, you're very vulnerable to the overmatch of AP, so even when you think you're angled, you'll still take pins just because of how squishy this battleship is. And that made it very painful for me to play as. Like, I'd rather play North Carolina, I'd rather play Massachusetts. But when they introduced that 40-second cooldown on the repair party, it's made it more enjoyable for me to play Kansas thus far. Yeah, I think that's all I'm going to wrap up with what the WoW's Wiki has shared. And I'll touch some more things in tomorrow's Upgrade and Commander Build video. So, Kansas, how do I like to play her? You have to be very, very conscious about your positioning in the Kansas because she's slow. And you can quickly find yourself engulfed by the enemy team if you're not being wise. Here, I'm really concerned about our team's positioning on the minimap, and I'm wondering, should I ping the cap? Should I ping the cap? Because we haven't seen the enemy submarine for a while, and you can see his last position was on the 5-6 line heading south. And I have a sneaky suspicion that he's just cruising down to our cap because we have no one near the cap. That's something you really have to be mindful of when you're looking at your team's positioning. You can see, yeah, we take a bit of damage there from Tier 7 Florida. But you have to be mindful of your team's positioning. And I'm already moving back in this general direction just in case he does happen to pop up on the cap. I won't be that far away that I can hopefully somewhat go down there. Now, as I move up here too, I'm also seeing the enemy team. There's a lot of them just on the 7-8 line. And if I get too close, it might result in taking a lot of damage rather quickly. So I'm going to angle to this Florida player. And we were able to bounce some of that, didn't take any damage. And then I'm going to decide that I need to probably disengage and go south towards our cap. There's something I keep meaning to mention about this ship. Oh yes, because of the long reload time, as you see now the enemy's capping our base, that submarine. Because of the long reload time that the Kansas, Vermont, Minnesota have, you can get a lot of use out of Brisk. So here I would be going like, what's the Brisk, 8% faster, I think, to help you. It helps so much just having that extra little speed on top of the Sierra Mike flag to be able to, maybe you have to disengage from a flank, you can get away that little bit faster, even though you're still somewhat slow, but it's not as painful as without Brisk as an example. So that's something I'll recommend in tomorrow's build. If you have a battleship that has a quick reload time, so let's say something like the Georgia, even lower tier battleships, Scharnhorst, something like that, you might not always get the best use out of Brisk just because of how short the reload times are. But you can get more of a use out of the Brisk skill on the Kansas, Minnesota, and Vermont, assuming that you're firing all your guns relatively at the same time and you're not just firing two turrets, wait 20 seconds, and you're firing your other 2 turrets, because then you're just going to be lit the whole time and never get use out of Brisk. So here is the Ismail sailing down the channel, and I saw him on the mini-map going down, so I was hoping I could catch him out like that. So when you catch a enemy battleship's broadside, quite often you can do a lot of damage to them and punish them. And that is kind of what you have to be mindful of with the Kansas, is that you're looking for those opportunity shots. Like if there's an enemy battleship who's pushing more directly towards me, or a cruiser, even though after my guns have reloaded 40 seconds, I'm not going to instantly shoot. I might wait to say, I think he's going to be turning broadside here. I think he's going to be showing me more angle. And I'll purposely hold on to the shot 5, 6, 8 seconds longer, just to ensure that I'm going to get the maximum damage value, I hope, out of these 12, 4, and 6mm guns, just because of that really long reload time. Yeah, that's an alright salvo. We aimed a little too far forward. I don't know if he cut his throttle or what. But here we're going to keep moving forward. I'm being mindful that I'm not going to ram the island here. Yeah, there's some squishiness at work there. And we're just going to relink with our team down here in the south, because there's no need for me to stay up here. Although I'm cutting the throttle, hoping that I can get a salvo off before he goes behind the island. And no. So that's one of the things that's frustrating sometimes, is that when you have good shots, you're still waiting for that reload, and you're not going to be able to get that salvo off. The ranges I would recommend playing Kansas at is the medium to long range. More probably the medium. And when I say medium, I think more like the 12 kilometers to 15 kilometers. That's what I envision more of medium range. If you're dealing with battleships that have secondary guns, then you don't want to, like a German battleship, 12.5 kilometer secondaries, then you want to be playing, more 13, 14, 15, 16. I think that's where Kansas really begins to shine, because, when you fire the guns, you're lit for 20 seconds, and if there's no one around, then you'll go dark. And then you still have to wait another 20 seconds, or a little shorter if you have adrenaline rush and such going. And then when you fire again, sometimes the enemy team can kind of forget that you're there in that position you were at previously. So that helps you kind of have that surprise factor in your salvos when you catch enemy ships outright broadside. Let's see, other things to talk about with this ship. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that gets talked about the ship is the superstructure. So, I mean, here you can see it's rather large. I mean, it's not huge and long like, let's say, something like the Incomparable or the Georgia superstructure. But it's still very notable. There's a lot going on right there, and especially you'll see a lot of AA guns on the mid superstructure of the Vermont. So if you take a lot of HE spam, your AA continuous damage is likely to go down with taking that damage. I mean, here you can see that our AA, we've only lost a few guns, where our secondaries are still online. So we have that 5.8 kilometer AA, and it looks like the 7.3 kilometer secondary range. So I don't recommend by any means that this is a secondary battleship line. And here I'm accelerating, and watch how the Degrasse just shot at me as I was accelerating. And we're going to dodge most of it, and our belt or our deck plating will prevent one from doing any pin damage. And then we avoid this other salvo incoming. So I was like, wow, like this ship definitely does play different, just because it's amazing how much a ship can change with one little buff, like the improved acceleration now that we have on Kansas, and having that 40-second cooldown on the repair party It really, in my opinion, makes the ship much more enjoyable to play. Where beforehand I didn't really enjoy playing Kansas, but now I'm like, oh, this isn't so bad because of those two buffs. It's quite nice. So here we still are in the lead points wise. I'm not really worried about burning my one of my last 2 repair parties yet. One of the things that most players don't understand, maybe if you're watching one of your favorite streamers on Twitch or YouTube, you're watching a replay of someone who did really good game, is that you'll see that if they use their heal now, they'll get the full potential out of the repair party, like versus waiting later. And when I was a beginner player, I'm like, why isn't he using his repair party? Like, he should be using his repair party. Some players will intentionally stall in using their repair party for the reason of Adrenaline Rush. So with Adrenaline Rush, it improves your reload time, it buffs your continuous AA damage, decreases your reload time on your secondary battery. So some players will just not use the repair party just so they get that extra little bit faster reload out of their main battery. And that's essentially what I'm doing here. Just because of how long the reload time is on the Kansas, Minnesota, and Vermont. And I'm not really in a situation where I'm really concerned about taking a lot of damage right now. But our team is still really close on points. It looks like our sub's going to push in, as it looks like we whiffed that entire salvo. So this game could still go either way, but I feel confident that our team seems to have that they are in control at least right now. So here we're going to reverse out, take a little bit of damage there, and he is going to smoke up because he's an Italian battleship, so we're not going to be able to get a salvo off on him there. But we do have some enemy teams. I'm looking on the minimap. They're pushing down from the 7-8 line. Planes are still spotting us. You can see since we completely ate up the Ryujo's planes earlier, that he's not messing with us since. Here he gets caught in our AA just because he's trying to finish off that Italian destroyer there. So I don't pop the defensive AA. And now that the Florida is moving up, I decided that, you know what, let's just go ahead and use the repair party now so I have it back online when I need to. And that, oh, even got a Citadel there. That's nice. And also having that North Carolina further in the back. So I think we might have Citadel the Florida through the deck. I'm not sure. I wasn't paying attention close enough to that salvo, so I forgot we were able to do that there to him. So here you see that tight turning circle radius at work. You know, very quickly we were able to get kind of reoriented. So I want to be in this kiting position. A battleship pushing into a kiting battleship is a disadvantage for him, but it's an advantage for me because I can just rotate, use a rudder shift if I needed a little more angle, even if my front guns don't have a lock on the target or firing angle, it's fine. So we're just going to sit here, and he looks like he's just going to be shooting HE at us, so not a big deal. And we're going to use our repair party as our damage control party as our repair party as just came back up. And I don't want to venture too far away from my Italian destroyer because I'm basically a no-fly zone for the tier 6 carrier. So I don't want to leave him, and I want to be this buffer zone because the North Carolina player on our team, he's really low on health. So I'm just trying to be this, I guess, damage sponge. I'm trying to take the attention of the enemy team. So yeah, so that's what the salvo can do. 6 penetrations. Now is this all through his frontal deck. I mean, Florida is like the Kansas in the sense it's a very squishy battleship, and it can very easily eat a lot of penetrations, just because of that not having that, you know, robust armor that you might have on other tier 8 or even some tier 7 battleships to an extent. But so we have a fire on us again. We're gonna go ahead and burn our last damage control party. I had switched to HE there, so you can see an example of that here. Still pretty nice. We set him on fire, and we're going to switch back to AP because he is pushing in on us. We could have kept shooting armor piercing. We didn't have to switch to the HE for that salvo. And here's the plane again, so we're going to pop defensive AA, though he just lost his plane, so don't get to get a whole bunch of use out of that. And there goes a North Carolina player. And this Florida player is definitely going to be going bye-bye with this next salvo, as we pick up the high caliber from the fire damage that was being done, and just before the time runs out. And we're going to have a nice 145,000 damage game. So, I was impressed when I played the buffed Kansas for the first time. And I was like, wow, like, the ship's like, nice. It's not terrible like it was beforehand. So over 600,000 credits, 23,000 experience, 18,500 free XP with the Dreadnought and high caliber, 145,000 damage, 17 planes shot down. Definitely can chew up the tier 6 planes for sure. And she can hold her own to a certain extent against tier 8 CVs, but I don't know if she'll be able to withstand the first attack. So we're going to top the team with over 1,900 base experience. It's a good match all in all. We got 3 destroyed as well. One of the things I do want to try out at some point is like an AA build Kansas, or probably more like a Vermont. I think that might be rather funny. So you can see most of the damage we did was on the 3 battleships, Florida, North Carolina, and Ismail. You notice this one salvo on the Ismail to end his day. And with premium count, we're still gonna make over 538,000 credits, all said and done. So, as I said, tomorrow we'll be doing an upgrade commander build on the Kansas. I'll give you my thoughts and impressions and what I recommend between the upgrades, consumables, the commander skills, so on and so forth. So if you liked today's video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you did not, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe if you do want to see more. If you're subscribed, thanks so much. I really appreciate it, as we are on our way to 1,000 subscribers, and we'll be doing a 1,000 subscriber giveaway when we hit 1,000 subscribers. So make sure to consider subscribing if you are not and you appreciate these videos. So until next time, take care.